Okay, for tools, I have a magnetic tray here. I have my impact with the impact 19mm. I have a 3/8 torque wrench for 10 to 200 foot-pounds, or 10 to 100 foot-pounds. I have a inch-pounds torque wrench, which is a 1/4 inch. That goes from, I believe, 50 to 200. 17 mil, 14 mil, and 12mm ratchets or wrenches. These are ratcheting. I got a 12mm 1/4 inch, two 14mm, which I believe one is half and one's 3/8, and then I got the rest are all 1/2 inch, I believe. So 17 short, 17 long, 19 mil short, 19 mil long, and a 1/2 inch and 3/8 ratchet. I don't know where my 1/4 inch ratchet went, but a rubber mallet. This is optional. Actually, the gun is optional too, but that's pretty much it. And then a hammer, flathead, Phillips screwdriver, a mallet just in case, and then I got PB blaster, and then my bow shield T9, and a breaker bar, and your spanner wrenches. So that's what you'll need to do the job. So I already pulled all the wheels off. I decided to do all 4 at once instead of doing 2 at the front and 2 at the rear. So if you don't know how to jack up the car, there's a front jack point under the front there. I don't have a skid guard, so it's really easy to access. It's just the tranny brace mount, I think it is, and then the back you just do it off the rear diff. So I already did the one side. On the other side, basically you got two 19mm bolts. You're gonna have, if you have a gun, you're gonna have the gun on this bolt, and then, or sorry, on the nut, and then you're gonna have your socket and wrench on this one, just because these aren't supposed to spin. The top ones are camber bolts. They'll have an arrow on them. Factory, they actually face on the inside. I have mine facing outside because if you have it facing outside, you can get a degree of more negative camber. So just be sure to put it back the way it was before. You'll have a 12mm nut here. Mine was, the stud actually started stripping inside, so I had to take a saw and cut it out, so I have this zip tied right now. So once you get those two done, next would be to loosen these nuts. Actually, I would do this first, so I already took 2 of the nuts off. This one's a little bit tricky, so you'll need more of a shallow socket, something that can kind of fit just to get it on there, and then you just give it a whirl. So 3 12mm nuts, and then your 19mm nuts here, and then you just tap these out. I recommend putting a jack under here to lift up the rotor, just so it's easier to pull these out, just so you're not damaging the threads, because they'll be putting a lot of stress on the actual stud itself. Something I did forget to mention, so when you take these, I recommend leaving one nut on, just kind of fairly loose, just so that way it's not falling down when you disconnect everything. So when you disconnect the rotors off the strut, or the strut mount off the strut, basically what you'll do is, I have a tool here by Milwaukee. It's their extended ratchet. Basically, you put it in there, and then you're gonna hold it and push it up so you could take the nut off. And once that nut is off, you can pull out the strut. So that's it. Pretty simple. All right, I've been doing breaks in between all these filmings just because I've been doing like a little bit each day because I've been working. And just yesterday I went snowboarding for the first time, and I'm in a huge amount of pain and soreness. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to try and pretty much finish the install today. But I took all my camber bolts out. They were really not camber and strut bolts. They were really corroded, like really bad. I just soaked these in vinegar for an hour, rinsed it with some cold water, tried to brush them up a bit, and then I'm going to put some of the Bow Shield T9 on there. Once they're on there, maybe I'll coat them before too. Just to update or recap, both struts are out. There are two 19mm bolts and nuts, and then you have to get that 12mm nut behind the strut. So this one over here, I actually ended up sawing out, so you can see it, because this one was seized also. But yeah, these have been on the car for 6 years, so I'll actually, you know, a lot longer than that, 7 years now. And then for the back, just gonna open up the garage here. So it's all bare, but you got a 14mm there and a 14mm there. And it's the same on the other side. You know, I don't see how people have trouble accessing them, just because it's, I don't know, if you have the right tools, it's pretty easy to get. You also didn't need to remove the spare tire, so I'm gonna get started on the rears here. Okay, so I used a ratcheting wrench on the rear 14 there, so with this, and then on this one I just used my socket because it could fit under there, and then the fronts I just kept them loose, so they're both still on there, just so that way it's not going to fall when I'm taking out the strut. Down here, so this is the nut bolt, 17mm, and then on this side, see it, 17 mils. So I'll remove that and take this out. So I just removed everything. What I did was I jacked up the strut disconnected. You might have to use a rubber mallet just to hammer the rear lower control arm out, I think is what it's called, and it off the rotor. And I use this to hold it up, so that way when I take the nut on top, it's not just gonna fall. So yeah, it can come out now. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. Just like that. Okay, so I got the rears and the fronts out. These are the Eibach handling edition for the Evo, so they're the MR Bilsteins and Eibach springs. So yeah, that's all off. I'm gonna go grab the Fortunatos. They've been coated with that Boschel T9, and I just let them dry and then wiped off the excess after 24 hours. So it's been about 2 days, so they should be dry now. Okay, so here's the rear, the OEM rear. Big difference. And then here's the front to OEM front. Now the top mount, so from here to the bottom of the center hole measures 20.5 roughly. Right now I don't know what these are measured at, but with the droop that they have, because these are going to be stiff, so these actually need to be significantly shorter. So if I put this on the car right now, when the car drops all its weight, it actually, this will compress more than what this is right now, I believe. But because these springs are stiffer, I actually have to adjust the height of this. They might be set, it might not be, but I'll see. So if this is, I'm just going to measure, same thing, the center of this hole to the top mount. I'm going to try and aim for 16 inches, because this is 20.5 right now. So I'll probably do 16 inches here, and we'll see how that works. And the rears, I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. But once you have it all figured out and it's on the car, you're going to measure I like doing the center of the wheel to the top of the fender. So you would measure from here to the top of the fender, and then whatever the gap is, however you want to decrease it. If it's a 2-inch gap, you minus it by 1 inch. For adjusting it, you would just measure the distance between here and make it 1 inch less. So that's how you would adjust them. So I'm going to go ahead and get these installed. Now I don't know if these are specific for left and right. I don't think they are. I didn't see any labels on there, but I'll figure it out when I put them on. Okay, as I was putting them on, so I just noticed that the Fortunato logos are at the bottom. So you notice, basically, whatever logo's at the bottom, if you're facing the front of the car, this is going to be my left side, and this is going to be my right side, or this will be the driver's side, and this will be passenger side. So these are all just hand tight on here, but that's as far up as it can go. Next, what you want to do is obviously adjust this so it's facing the right way, and that you're going to need a jack 100% for this, just to bring it up in line with the mount. Okay, so you're going to want to put these as loose as you can, like as loose as you can, so that way when you put this up, you have enough room to wiggle these bolts in. So I put them back the exact same way. I put my bracket on before I did the top, so we should all be good to go there. And then for the rear, this just mounts onto the new bolts here, the new studs that come with the new coilover. So I'm just going to tighten these up, and then we'll torque them down. I'll just quickly check the torque spec on these. The torque spec on these is going to be 81 plus or minus 8 foot-pounds of torque. The back here is going to be 111 inch-pounds of torque. And then this is going to be 33 plus or minus 5 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, I got both of the fronts done. They're both torqued. I haven't obviously lowered the car yet, but my distance here is 2 5/8 on both sides. So when I drop the car, hopefully, I don't know if there's an exact science. I'm sure there is, but I haven't seen any methods on YouTube, so I haven't seen either. That when you lower your car, how should you adjust your coils before doing it for the first time? Usually it's trial and error, but we'll figure it out. Now my rears, so in these Fortunatos, I don't know if they were the wrong size or if it's because my bracket is rusted to shit, but this is a 1/4 inch wider than this. I probably just spent 45 minutes trying to get this lined up there. This was so tight it couldn't move around, so I basically had to perfectly line it up and hammer it in. I eventually just started spraying bow shield on there to lubricate it, and then I got some actual grease, and then I just started once the grease helped a lot. I can move it around and wiggle the bolt in. I tried using a vise to kind of separate the distance from here to here, so I viced these two together so it could be pushed out a bit. Don't know if it actually did anything, but I finally got it in. This was kind of a huge pain, but and then as far as mounting this goes, so I have my rear extenders on and I shot it straight up. So instead of coming out to the side here, I actually just went straight all the way up, and then it is right here. So very easy access, very subtle. I mean, no one's going to pay attention to the back of the trunk anyways, so I'm going to finish the rest of the car and then we'll see what happens when I lower it. Also, forgot to mention that the torque spec on these, on the 17 millimeter, the torque spec on the 17 millimeter nut and bolt here is 52 plus or minus 7 foot-pounds, and then the top 14s are the same as the front, 33 I think I said, plus or minus 5 foot-pounds. Alright, so I got the last set on. That one also took me an hour. I have a feeling that it may have been the wrong size, or my where it mounts onto the bottom of the strut is corroded. But when I measured this, like I said, it was 1.5. The new ones were 1 3/4, and you know, a 1/4 inch of play. Because I measured the in between there was a 1.5. It wouldn't fit, so I had a really hard time. Not sure if it's my car, if they just shipped me the wrong size at the bottom, but that was probably the dumbest thing I've ever had to do with my car. And I swapped the motor before, so that kind of sucked. But all that's left is put the wheels on and see the height. So everything's torqued up, and we'll get to the wheels. So from here to here, or sorry, here, it's 4.5 on both sides. This is the rears, so I'm going to see how much wheel gap that gives me. Putting the wheel on right now, it's only like 1.5 inches of space here, or 1 inch, so hopefully when I lower it doesn't get slammed. Okay, so so I think I might have to drop it down more, but I'll lower the car and see what happens. My rears were rolled a little bit. I might have to get them rolled out again, just because when I got these spacers on, when I was driving, there was a sharp edge here that would like cut the tire. These are gonna be burners anyway, so I don't really care if they get ruined. Okay, so I have the car lowered. I had to get some 2x4 underneath because it was too low. So right now it's pretty much, you know, my new tires are gonna come out more, so they'll be sticking out a lot. So I'm probably gonna have to go definitely half an inch or an inch up, considering the top of the tire is already tucked underneath. While this would work well with these tires, it's not gonna work well with my future tires. And it's still winter-ish. Everything's melting. It'll probably take a couple weeks for all of this to melt. So I'm gonna readjust. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure from the center of this to the top of this, and then because I want an inch gap, I'm gonna measure that to there, and then I'm gonna add an inch on the inside. So I've adjusted the rears. I'll go over there in a bit. I'm just gonna explain something here. So to loosen this, I was using the flathead and cloth, but I noticed my flathead was really sharp, so it would break through the cloth and start chipping the paint here. What you can do is you can actually hammer this portion right here to loosen it, and then the same goes for tightening it, which I do recommend because it like pretty much is like a guaranteed lock instead of you just trying to crank it. So for the front, my main concern is my garage. The ramp is really steep into the alley. They built the foundation really high, so I'm just gonna go a little bit higher. So right now I leave the rears like half an inch or 3/4 inches of a gap, and then the front I'm gonna do like an inch to 3/4 inch of a gap, just because on OEM when I was going down, the side skirt was actually almost rubbing. And now that my brother's parked in the garage, I don't really have the room to do an angle reverse, so we'll see what it looks like. Almost done. Okay, after a bunch of major trial and error, I am still not done. The front is done. I thought the rear would have been done, but so it's about a 1-inch gap, I believe. You know, I could fit like a finger. That was my goal, because when I said like the new wheels come in, they're just gonna come out a bit more, so I want at least a half an inch clearance from the fender from the top of the tire. They will be cambered in though, so yeah, once I lowered the front, I totally forgot that the rear would actually sit a little bit lower. I didn't think it would actually sit lower, so it's like back right where I started, so I gotta lift up the rear a bit, but that's pretty much it for the coilovers. With this gong show in the back alley, like there's a river pretty much right here. I'm just gonna go up the alley to get out of the house. My concern here is this ramp. I gotta create a ramp for this ramp to get out of my driveway, because I don't even know, because like I said, right when I get to about here, the side skirt on the OEM suspension was almost touching, and it's guaranteed to be scraping right now. And because my brother's parked in the garage, I don't know why he needs to. He's an SUV parked on the street, but normally I would just go in at a massive angle because this right side is lower, and then I come straight in the center, but I don't have that luxury, so we'll see how it goes. I'll also see how that Bow Shield T9 does, because I'm going to be obviously adjusting this. Tomorrow I'll probably be double checking the preload, because the preload on the fronts actually were loosened from the Bow Shield T9, so I didn't tighten it enough, so I'm going to check on the rears too right now. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Fortune Auto 500 coilovers. We'll do a review on driving later in the summer.